Last May, Governor of New York Andrew Cuomo and his administration included a liability shield protection for nursing home operators in the 2020 budget bill. So this protection relieved these operators of liability for their decisions throughout COVID. Now, as the media is extensively covering Cuomo's major mishandling and cover-up of thousands of nursing home debts, those seeking to file lawsuits are being rejected by many of those firms. Here to discuss, founder of the Daily Poster, David Sirota himself, friend of the show. Good to see you, David. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So break down exactly what's happening here in terms of we've got, the liability shield, which you uncovered and reported, really one of the first people to ever talk about it. Now it's actually being put into practice as this scandal begins to engulf his entire administration.
So the nursing home immunity shield, what people need to understand is that Andrew Cuomo, during the early crisis, the early pandemic, did an executive order extending some sort of immunity from lawsuits to frontline medical workers. And very few people have said that that's any kind of problem. The scandal really unfolded when his major donor, a group called the Greater New York Hospital Association, which has given more than $1 million to his political machine, that they drafted provisions to add to the state budget that extended those liability shields to corporate executives, shareholders, board members, the entire corporate architecture of nursing homes. And obviously the criticism of that is that you're now immunizing from lawsuits, you're taking away a deterrent to corporate misdoing, and you're doing that for executives, the people who make the decisions about staffing, about how much money to spend on protective equipment and the like. So you've removed a deterrent to corporate wrongdoing. Now, fast forward to now, and we published a story at the Daily Poster talking to law firms across the state. And what we've seen is that there has been essentially a legal chilling effect in New York, where there are very, very few cases that are being brought. Law firms are not even taking people's cases in many cases because the immunity law has basically told those attorneys that the courtroom doors are closed. And so essentially you have the families of victims in the nursing home situation. You have those families shut out of the legal system.
So, and when we look further, as the scandal is because this is part of the point, and this is what Crystal's talked about, which is that in terms of the sexual harassment allegations, obviously they're terrible, but that's largely all the media is really focusing on. I mean, is there an appetite that you see, David, in terms of the actual officials who are investigating this in New York State? Could this be something that could really be looked at, possibly even rescinded, and be part of the investigation into his conduct?
New York lawmakers are right now debating whether to fully repeal Cuomo's immunity law. That's happening as we speak, and there's a lot of talk that they're going to just fully and completely remove the liability shield, which the critics of it would say would be a huge victory unto itself. But those critics have also, people like Assemblyman Ron Kim and others, have said that the link between the money coming into Cuomo's political machine and the favor that went out, this immunity law, that too needs to be investigated. Now, will the legislature investigate it? Will the Attorney General investigate it? It's hard to know. And it's worth saying, look, a lot of the Democrats in the New York legislature also got money from the group that was behind this, the Greater New York Hospital Association. So will that tamp down a move for an investigation because some of the lawmakers don't want to look necessarily at themselves? It's hard to know.
And so whenever we look forward and more, what does this really tell us there, David, about the media role? Because you and we covered, obviously we had you on the show and for this, but this is the first time that many people have just woken up to what was happening in New York State. And it really doesn't matter. We covered many red governors just as critically here in terms of their decision making. Why is it so difficult for the media in order to wake up and cover these things?
It's a really great question. I mean, that's the thing. I saw Chris Cuomo of CNN. He said something on the air like he's going to recuse himself and, he's not going to cover this. And the thing is that really what Chris Cuomo should be doing is apologizing. Because as you allude to, Chris Cuomo and others, I should say, but as you allude to, there were legislators, there were independent media outlets trying to blow the whistle on the nursing home disaster that was happening all through the past year. And that was, in a lot of cases, drowned out. The blowing of the whistle was drowned out by a media machine that was more focused on celebrating Andrew Cuomo and trying to portray him as a hero. And so the consequences of that media noise machine selling Andrew Cuomo as a hero while this disaster was happening is in the casualty count. It's that there wasn't a media megaphone loud enough to break through to say, hey, wait a minute, instead of celebrating Andrew Cuomo, maybe we need to actually scrutinize what he's doing to try to prevent this disaster from getting even worse, which of course it did.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you for being on top of this, and thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thanks as always.
Absolutely. We'll have more Rising for everybody right after this.